So what are the benefits of research in this area that are omitted from Pinker's discussion in his
Well, okay,
Steel
so
and the censorship case?
yeah, so I thought there were three important things for which understanding race differences, especially in intelligence, but in other traits, is vital. Those three are understanding human evolution just in general. Like, okay, we want to understand what it was. Well, let me rephrase that. Human variation is undoubtedly a part of the story of human evolution. And if we want to understand human variation, variation in, let's say, lung capacity or spleen size, or obviously skin color, skeletal structure, etc., intelligence is an important part of that, presumably, since it's such an important human trait. So if we want to understand human evolution and human variation, just as curious scientists with no political agenda whatsoever, leaving out intelligence is leaving out an enormous part of that story. Two, it's crucial for understanding both individual and national disparities, or we could say group disparities as well, because individual, whatever. So if we want to understand why there are a higher proportion of whites in, let's say, physics or in high levels of physics than blacks, it's absolutely indispensable to understand race differences in intelligence. Same holds for if we want to know why Europeans are more successful. Let's say to make that concrete, they have, like more scientific achievements, more literary achievements, and higher GDP than countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Again, can't understand that unless you understand race differences in intelligence. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, at least in the moment, it's vital to or to respond to the question that we will inevitably get from the left across the West, not just in the United States. Why are there these differences if it's not pervasive racism? What could possibly explain it if not racism? A point that I want to make on that, and then I'll stop this, and you can talk. This I often frame it as the progressive is going to keep raising this issue and keep saying, look, America is racist, Britain is racist, etc. But I think importantly, it's perhaps best to imagine like an ordinary person who's a good-natured, moral human, age 22 or something, who first stumbles across all of these disparities. And these are very large disparities, right? Incarceration rates, income, yearly income, etc. All of these things. There are massive disparities between whites and blacks. And I imagine a good-natured person stumbling across these and thinking, must be the country is racist. Like, how else would we explain these?
Yeah.
And if we do this gentleman's agreement to silence, we have no answer for that person's concerns.
So the gentleman's agreement presumably involves not measuring race and
The outcomes.
race and incarceration, race and
Right.
SAT scores in the first place. It involves the color blindness, which is a policy Pinker recommends as part of his Steelman case. But of course, the problem is that we've already accumulated 50 years of extremely detailed data on this. So even if we start measuring it in 2025, people are going to ask questions. They're going to engage in historical raceology. And there's going to be ample evidence to dig through. So you'd have this gentleman's agreement would have to be successful would need to involve kind of scrubbing the recent historical record.
Right, and then you start to get into Stalin levels of like actual repression and alteration of history.
Pinker wouldn't seriously entertain.
No, of course, but you're Right.
Yeah.
But your point is well taken. First of all, it will never happen that you will prevent people from studying, collecting, and forwarding these data on disparities, right? So you might as well say we should have a gentleman's agreement to defund the police so long as nobody commits crime. Sure, that sounds great, but it's not going to happen. So in the real world, we're going to have these data. And you're right. Pinker does advocate. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that, yeah, okay. So in France, for example, as he notes in the section,
that's right.
Very little data on race is collected by the government, at least. I don't know about private research projects. I have to ask someone in France. But the government doesn't report, for example, on its website, racial differences in incomes and in education, as both Britain and the US do.
Right.
But careful and wily statistics people have been able to identify proxies. For example, there's a map of France that someone has created showing the proportion of newborns in each region that are tested for sickle cell disease, which is a good proxy for the percentage of people of non-European origin in France.
Right.
So even if you don't collect any data on race, you can often find proxies for it. And then analyzing that proxy data invites the same questions as the racial data would have invited.
Right. So
to watch the full interview or to listen to it as an audio podcast, become a subscriber at aporiamagazine.com.